Is Billy Napier's job more secure than we thought it was?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And all right, fine. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen, Twitter, WNS_Brandon, written work, New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're getting right into this because for weeks, maybe even a month or close to a month now, it's kind of felt like, hey, it's a matter of when, not if, Billy Napier gets fired. And pretty much every time Florida lost, we were like, hey, Sunday morning, are we going to get a notification about a decision? Well, guess not. On threes, Keith Niebuhr. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that poorly. I see his work. I like his work. I've just never seen it. I've never heard it. I've only seen it written. So Keith Niebuhr from On Three posted that a source told him there are financial concerns that may be the reason that, hey, Billy Napier might be staying longer than anticipated. I've got beef with that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I've got beef with that. Not with Keith, but I've got beef with it because people talk about financial concerns, and I've seen that like in Florida. I've mentioned it before. Like, hey, I wonder maybe they don't actually have the money that they feel they need to replace people. I said that a couple weeks ago. I was like, maybe they don't have the money to fire Billy, buy out a big time coach, and then pay a big salary as well. It's one of the reasons that I've personally, any conversation that's involved Lincoln Riley or Dan Lanning, I've written it off because whether or not I think it's realistic that that guy would want to come here, that coach want to come here, I don't think Florida could afford those buyouts because those buyouts are estimated to be in the 60 plus range. It's a lot of money when you have to pool together $26 million for Billy Napier's buyout. However, I think it's because the upper administration and the athletic director, Scott Strickland included, UAA, a bunch of them, I think it's because they're spineless, cowardly losers. That's what I think it is. I think it's that they are spineless and they're not standing on it, right? Simple as that. I do believe also that if things go south again throughout the remainder of the season, not saying they will, but if they do, I think that you'll suddenly hear, oh, they got the money pulled together. Remember that ESPN notification we all got after the Texas A&M game at 1 a.m? That was just like, Florida boosters have pulled together the $26 million needed for Billy Napier's buyout. And then nothing happened. I want to make this abundantly clear. They have the money to do it. Whether or not they're being cheap about spending it is different, but they've pooled that buyout money together. I'm telling you that. I'm not asking or suggesting. I'm telling you that, okay? And I will say this, and this isn't me saying fire Billy right now. This is none of that, okay? I've said I stand where I stand of you should fire Billy. However, I also stand on you've got 5 games left to change opinions, okay? Mine included. I'd like to think I'm an open-minded person. You've got 5 games left to change minds. A close loss to Tennessee, a blowout win over Kentucky. Those aren't needle movers when you go, oh, well, what's your next game? Georgia. And the game after that, Texas. And the game after that, LSU. And the game after that, Ole Miss. Yeah, you've got opportunities to prove people wrong and change people's minds. Kentucky and a loss to Tennessee, those aren't the ones that are going to change. I don't want to be insulting. Those aren't the ones that are going to change the minds of people who aren't just reacting strictly off emotion, okay? who aren't just riding the wave, fair weather, whatever you want to call it. Not that. Again, I know there's some people who are like, I don't care what he does, fire him. I've said I'm willing to change my opinion, but yeah, those games, Tennessee, Kentucky, not going to do that. When Keith reported, he said that when you're talking buyout, 26 to 19 million, depending on when it happens, $20 million in revenue sharing next year, which I think it's 22.3 million is supposed to be the number or something like that. Hiring a top coach, including the buyout for them, that gets over $50 million that we're talking about, and that's too steep. That gets over $50 million if we're talking about a Lane, a Lane Kiffin, where you go, hey, we'll say 20, we'll just cut it down the middle and say 23 million to fire Billy, 22 million for the revenue sharing. You're already at what, 45 million? Lane's got, I think, a $4 million buyouts for 47 million. You pay him top dollar, you're up at 57 to 60 million dollars. That's if you're buying out Lane. There's other candidates that cost even more than that. And I think that it might be them being cheap. Again, the buyout money is there. My whole hesitation when I mentioned this weeks ago was not about the buyout money. It was about the rest of the money because it is expensive. However, I will also say this, and I'm not saying anything about the reporting itself. Like he said, he's like, hey, a source told me this. That's fine. I don't think it's impossible for that to be right about them going, hey, that's too steep. I do think it's a cause for concern, but they have the buyout money. And I'm telling you factually, there are some big money boosters that are willing to open up checkbooks if there's some serious change. Okay? There are. So I'm not as concerned about the money. I think it's a possibility that's a thing, yes. But I don't think that's what this is. And that's my point. It's not about do they have the money? Will they have the money? I think that they're trying to get ahead of this and using it as, hey, we don't have the money, but in actuality, they're backing off. Okay? I think that them all of a sudden going, hey, it's a money thing. I think it's simply the teams looked better in recent weeks, which is absolutely true. Even in the loss to Tennessee, they looked better. They played better football. But let's take this back to before the season. Before the season, I was guessing that the number was 5. I said, I think Billy Napier keeps his job. You can go back to December of last year. I was like, I think Billy Napier can keep his job with 5 wins this year. As long as there's significant improvements made, the team looks good. No blowout losses to rivals, all that. And a good recruiting class. Good recruiting class isn't happening. I think and by good, I mean high ranking. I think that there's plenty of talent in this current recruiting class. But great recruiting class ranking, not happening. Avoiding blowout losses, well, that's too late. You lost that one week 1. And then in week 3, again, I understand you only lost by 13 in week 3. And it's like, 2 possessions isn't that bad. They didn't throw the ball after halfway through the third quarter. You got blown out and dominated in every way, shape, and form in that game. Okay? So I thought the number was 5 before the season. Again, I said that all the way back to December of last year. And even during the season last year, after the Arkansas loss, I was like, hey, I don't think you can miss a bowl game 2 years in a row and keep your job at the University of Florida. That would have been last year's the first year, this year's the second. And I was like, I don't think you can do that here. Then, prior to the season, I had it confirmed. The number's 5. And I told you guys when I got it confirmed. If you're a Locked On Gators insider, links in the description below if you want to join it. But I said to everybody, hey, the number's 5. And then the Miami game happened. And I was told that there wasn't necessarily a new number, but it's not win 5 games. Not expectations rose, but the requirement rose to justify keeping a guy that's going to get embarrassed 41-17 at home, then beat Samford, yay, and then get embarrassed by Texas A&M's backup quarterback at home. Yeah, I was told that expectations, not expectations, but performance needed to rise higher than just 5 wins because, well, embarrassing. And it's as simple as that, right? So I do believe that money may be an issue. However, I don't think money is what's holding them back right now. I think money may be an issue when you're actually hiring a new coach. I think this is more they're reacting emotionally, and by they, I mean the money people, the upper administration, the ones that I am insulting, that they are reacting emotionally and that they are making this decision emotionally, which, I mean, at that point, man, not an easy way to come back from that. But let's talk about this season, right? Let's talk about the season so far. We'll go game by game, and we'll talk about what Billy Napier has done in these games. And we'll talk about, well, the remainder of the season next on Locked On Gators. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that byproduct, not just dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's a foolproof 100%. I am saying that I have used ZBiotics a couple of times now. And every single time, first off, went hard in the paint. Second off, woke up feeling pretty good compared to how I'd usually feel there. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash, okay? You can run your game all season long, and you can mix and match sports, right? Yesterday was Thursday night football. Every night, you've got basketball now. It's back. The NBA's back. Every weekend, you can go with college football. You're going to have college basketball soon. Everything's open up, right? Everything. You can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5, and you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus, okay? And each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups, right? Download the app today. Use code LockedOnCollege to get $50 off instantly. And after you play your first $5 lineup, it is highly encouraged. Just saying, it's highly encouraged to go use PrizePicks and run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Hopefully with Josh Oliver, first touchdown Thursday Night Football. Just saying, would have been. I can only imagine that was like plus 1,400, right? Those odds had to be insane for that. But that's neither here nor there. The Florida Gators right now are 4-3. Tough to complain, right? I think a lot of people go, not tough to complain in general, but tough to complain. I think that when you look at what the expectations were after the Miami game and after the Texas A&M game, it was like, oh, brother, they might win 2 games the remainder of the season. That's Florida State, actually, not Florida there. But we'll go through the season. Again, 5 wins was the expectation at the start of the season, or 5 wins was the bar at the start of the season. 5 or 6 wins was what I thought this team would get this season. Miami Hurricanes loss, embarrassing, lost 41-17. Looked horrible, which, by the way, was the second year in a row that you came out and laid an egg in week 1, which for me was a big issue because for me, I needed no blowout losses, and you need to have these guys ready to play. Like, if you get blown out, but they at least look ready to play, it's not as bad as just getting blown out while looking like fools, right? But week 1, big blowout loss, horrible loss. I had so many parents in the DMs just talking about it because I tweeted. I was like, like at what point do parents like how do parents feel about what we're dealing with right now? And there were a lot of unhappy parents in there. Then you had the Samford blowout win. Yay, Samford blowout win. Then you had Texas A&M come to town, backup quarterback, and Texas A&M blew the doors off you, right? Use a backup quarterback. Didn't even use him really to throw the ball in the second half. They just ran the ball. And that was, again, like, now you were 0-2 against FBS opponents. And everyone was looking at it like, well, this is going to get ugly this year. And you beat a really bad Mississippi State team by 3 more points than Toledo beat them the week prior. And it wasn't really a confidence-inducing game, right? It was the most points that a Billy Napier-led Florida Gators team had ever scored against an FBS opponent. It was the most points, and obviously with that is the most points a Billy Napier-led Florida Gators team has scored, 45 against an SEC opponent at that too. But you still didn't feel great about it, right? Because you had 4 experiences. 2 of them you scored 45 points in. 2 of them you won. But 2 of them you got the doors blown off you at home. And that's just gut-wrenching, right? You go into the bye week. And we get told, hey, they're changing up their approach to practicing in the bye week. Which, again, to me, is still damning on Billy Napier, because you're in year 3. It took you until a third of the way through your 3rd year to realize, hey, we're not practicing right, and fix that. Yeah, that's an issue. I give you, props for recognizing something and addressing something and fixing something, genuinely fixing it. But I also feel like it took you that long to realize something was wrong. That's an issue. Also, by the way, after the Texas A&M game is when we got the ESPN notification of Florida Gators boosters are pooling the money together, which, by the way, they did. That money is available for the buyout. I want to make that clear. You come back from the bye week and you face UCF, which, again, you dominated that game. It's similar to the Texas A&M game, right? Texas A&M beat Florida by 13, but they dominated Florida. Florida beat UCF by 11 without scoring a point in the second half, but they dominated UCF. Okay. Also, and I said this immediately after the game, yes, Florida blew UCF out in that game, but that was Florida playing average football and UCF playing really, really bad football. The week prior to that, UCF ran for under 200 yards. Against Florida, they ran for under 200 yards. And the week after that game, UCF ran for under 200, or the game after that, UCF ran for under 200 yards. Okay? UCF's run game fell off a cliff prior to the Florida game. And then last week, rebounded. But for a while, their run game fell off a cliff. So it wasn't even like you were any longer destroying a top-ranked rushing attack. It fell off. And at first it was like, oh, Colorado's playing great defense. And then it was like, wait, UCF looks really bad right now for some reason. Okay, so you beat them, dominated them. But again, I still stand on Florida played average in that game. UCF played horrible, but you dominated. Tennessee game comes, and this was maybe the most glaring coaching failure of the season, right? You lost that game 23-17 in overtime. You had an entire debacle. We'll call it what it is, right? Also, don't forget the Texas A&M game, to backtrack again. You took off 14 points, or you gave them 14 points with penalties, as in you had 2 drives extended due to defensive penalties that Texas A&M scored 14 on those. And you had penalties that stalled offensive drives. So penalties killed you there. By the way, that's coaching failure. Tennessee, let's start with 12 men on the field. 12 men on the field at the half. And that leads you to go into halftime up 3-0, despite clearly playing better football in that game. But, things happened, right? Fumbles, bad play call on 4th down. I understand DJ Lagway could have kept the ball. The issue is not that DJ Lagway could have kept the ball. It's that you gave a play call that wasn't, hey, DJ, run this thing for a 1st down right now. That's my issue. I don't care if it was an option. I don't care about anything. Which, by the way, I know there's people that go, oh, DJ made the wrong read. Billy Napier came out and said, hey, he made the right read. Also, you could talk about how Trey Wilson should have cut up sooner. Could have talked about that too. But that was a coaching failure of a game. And then you score a touchdown on a 3rd and 19, I believe it was, with DJ Lagway, to go down by 1. Come out in a 2-point conversion. Tennessee calls timeout. And you go, hee, yippee, I got him. Which is, by the way, embarrassing. Not that I just did that, but that you celebrated that was wild. Then you kick the PAT, go to overtime. That's where you lost the game. If you're part of the insider program, I sent the message where I was like, you should have gone for it. Like, you should have gone for 2. Analytics tell you go for 2. Okay. And here's the thing. I know there's people that go, oh, like you can't bank on everything analytics. My stance on analytics is not everything you do has to be analytically oriented. It is also, though, not everything you do is gut oriented. I think you have to use a combination of the two in order to find a successful method to it. And for me, I look at it as analytics tell me go for 2, but my gut was go for 2 there. Because you're going to wind up kicking field goals, and they're going to eventually score a touchdown. That was my pure standpoint, was you will settle for field goals, but Tennessee will eventually score a touchdown. And I can't say the same about you. So you lose there anyway. You have to go for 2. And at least if you lose there, I go, hey, you went out on your shield in that game, right? I'm not going to fault you for it. And I wouldn't. Again, the process is there. I am process oriented. It's just, it feels like the process isn't really working under Billy Napier either. Then you have Kentucky, homecoming. You blow them out 48-20. Great game, hell of a game. But through these first 7 games, you beat Samford, FCS, Mississippi State below 500, UCF below 500, Kentucky below 500. You got blown out by Miami, ranked. Blown out by Texas A&M, who was ranked after they blew you out. And then you lost to Tennessee. So, yes, you could say, oh, they've only lost to ranked teams. They've also only beaten under 500 teams. Not an impressive first half of the schedule, or first 7/12 of the schedule, right? There's still a back 5 games that are, well, pretty impressive if you can win some of them. We'll talk about those next on Locked On Gators. Hey, NFL and NBA fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, I don't know, let's say Jordan Poole's 17 points in the first quarter last night. What the hell was that? Where is he good again? Is he good again? Wild. You can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. I don't know if you're a Florida Gators fan, or if you're a fan of another team tuning into this, or if your significant other or insignificant other listens to this or watches this and you are there for it. But if you're a fan of any college team, any university really, go check out homefieldapparel.com. The absolute, the softest t-shirts I own. I love them. They are incredibly comfortable. I'm a sweaty dude. I don't feel super sweaty in Home Field Apparel's work. They're incredible. If you like my orange 2-bits shirt that I wear, that I love so much, if you wear the charcoal, the swamp shirt that I love so much, Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use code Gators24 and save yourself some money with homefieldapparel.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. Now it's time to talk about the rest of this schedule because, like I said, right, Florida is 4-0 against sub-500 teams. Florida is 0-3 against ranked teams, 0-2 at the time they played, but Texas A&M was ranked immediately after. I don't care how you want to justify it of if they're ranked at the time you play or ranked at the end of the season or whatever it is, because I know that that's a constant discussion about talking about top 25 teams. You can talk about all those things. I don't really care about that. That's a moot point to me. However, the Florida Gators, and I've said, again, I will reiterate this because I know that there's going to be people in the comments, you hate Billy Napier. I just don't think he's good enough for this job. But again, I'm an open-minded individual, right? If Billy Napier can show me something, because this is the thing, you don't have, again, I want to reiterate this fact as well, or this point as well. I've said that I don't think year 3 is long enough to know if a coach can win you a national championship. I think year 3 is a good point to go, hey, they can't do it though. And right now, I still pretty firmly believe Billy Napier can't do that. Okay? And to me, that's a good enough justification to get rid of him. However, if you want to say the jury's still out, you've got 5 games to prove that and 5 games to earn yourself one more year, because really that's what you're doing at this point, is earning yourself one more year as the head coach of the University of Florida. That includes rankings are they as they presently are, number 2 Georgia. I don't expect you to win that game at all. But if you can, I think pretty much everybody's going to start turning their head a little bit and go, could they be doing something? So there's number 2 Georgia. Then on the road at Texas, not an easy place to go into DKR and win that game. But it's been done before. You can do it again, as in Georgia did it last week. You could do it in a couple weeks. I will also say this. I'm not buying into, Florida's running the table. I am saying, though, I do think that every team on the schedule, despite their ranking, does have weaknesses and does have their faults. And I mean, we've seen Georgia give up big plays. DJ Lagway, one of the best deep ball passers in the country right now. Georgia's going to be without their 2 starting safeties because of targeting calls against Florida. DJ Lagway is one of the best deep ball passers in the country right now, if you can capitalize there. Texas, we've seen their flaws, and also a big part of what I think was Texas' success early was they haven't played anybody. And then they played someone, and they got pretty embarrassed, right? They took out Quinn Ewers, put in Arch Manning. Texas is beatable, okay? Then you have LSU coming to Gainesville. I'm very interested to see how that game works out. I do think that Billy Napier has had pretty good success against very cover 1, cover 3 heavy defenses, but he's also had success against Blake Baker in general at Missouri. Won in his first year, 24-17. Should have won last year if not for allowing a 4th and 14. Should have won on the road, scoring 31 points. Maybe against LSU, you can kind of strike there again, right? I will give you a maybe for LSU. I also think LSU's had, I feel like they started off looking really good, and then they had the South Carolina game, and then they've been pretty hot and cold. Interested to see what they look like in 3 weeks when they play Florida. Then you've got the Lane Train coming to town and Ole Miss. I think that's a very winnable game. Very interesting game. Let's say Billy Napier's still the head coach, right? But lost to Georgia, lost to Texas, lost to LSU. Just hypothetically. Lose those 3. Beat Ole Miss. I would love to see what the fan base reaction would be. With Lane being the guy that so much of the fan base has said, hey, he's the one. He's the guy that's going to replace Billy. And if you lose these next 3, we know everybody's going to be like, okay, Billy's done for. If he's still here and he beats Lane, I'm so curious to know what that conversation becomes of beating Lane, keeping Billy, firing Billy, hiring the guy that Billy beat. And I know that there's talent difference. It's wild to me that I'm an agent of chaos. I'm a fan of chaos. I'd love to see that work out. But then you have Florida State, which right now looks like a dumpster fire. So we're not going to talk about them as being the game that'll change your mind unless they somehow turn it around and start rattling off a bunch of wins, which even then, we'll see. But you've got 4 ranked opponents remaining. You haven't beaten any ranked opponents yet. Prove some people wrong. Win a game you're not supposed to win. I understand. Kentucky was favored in that game. I picked Florida to win. I expected Florida to win. I thought Florida would win. I didn't think they'd win by 28, but I thought they'd win that game. I also thought Florida could beat Miami. Horrible performance that was. I thought Texas A&M would beat Florida. Florida should beat Mississippi State. Should have beaten UCF. Or I think I picked UCF to win that one. That was just rough. That was an ugly game too. Tennessee, Florida, I thought really could have won that game if they had average coaching. And that was always the thing talking about this season, the lead up to the season, the off season, the spring was you have talent on this team, right? Average coaching wins you, even with this schedule, average coaching with the talent on this team wins you 7 or 8 games. This is a good roster. Billy Napier has helped build a really good roster. But the on-field coaching has failed you multiple times. That's a problem, right? Obviously. And so while you can build a roster, if you can't win games with that roster, what the hell is the point? So I don't know if financials are really going to play a part in it. I know that the buyout money is there. I think that it's upper administration and the people making the decisions getting a little trigger shy now that it might be time to actually make a big boy decision. But I still stand where I stand. Again, there's time to prove myself and everybody wrong. But Kentucky, not moving the needle. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back not tomorrow because there's no Florida Gators football. Womp womp. We will be back on Monday to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.